again, everyone. Welcome back to Ghostwood, the Twin Peaks podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Charles Skaggs, back in Ghostwood Forest, trying really hard to hide out from the coronavirus, but still not working. Go figure.
It has infiltrated our government.
It is everywhere. Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Xan and I took some interest today because, hey, Ohio's governor got the coronavirus. So of course,
Mike DeWine,
go ahead.
who started out so strong and just caved to science-denying pressure, sadly.
Yes.
Has the coronavirus.
Gee darn. So I guess we're not going to be. Well, I guess we're still opening schools. Ridiculously enough.
I don't freaking know. I think a lot of the districts are going distance learning, at least for the first quarter.
Here's hoping. So, thankfully, my wonderful co-host Xan Sprouse is here to put all that aside, and we're going to try and talk some more Mulholland Drive. And now that's going to be in my head now all evening.
It's been in my head for a month.
It is such a catchy little riff, isn't it?
Oh, amazing.
It's like such an earworm. So, back in episode 79, we reviewed Mulholland Drive. We unfortunately weren't able to record last week because, hey, Xan's husband Chris had a birthday. Happy birthday, Chris.
He sure did. Happy birthday, baby.
So understandably, we took the week off. And
we took the week off.
And so now we're playing catch up, but hope everybody enjoys here at episode 80 as we talk the Criterion Collection special features of Mulholland Drive at long last. And I know that this is something that a friend of ours, friend of the podcast, DJ Nick, has been waiting for.
Mm-hmm.
So he was apparently beside himself once I told him that that you had canceled on last week's podcast because of Chris's birthday.
When I talked to him earlier today, he's like, "When are you recording Ghostwood?" I'm like, "In like 2 hours. It'll be fine."
So here we go, Nick. So I hope you enjoy it, even though he still has no idea what the hell we're talking about, which is okay.
Yeah, he needs to at least watch this one. Yeah, that's the thing. Unfortunately, when we get to 1987 for our Gold Standards podcast, unfortunately, we will not.
Yes.
You
kind of got a little glitchy there. I missed that part.
Oh, sorry. I said that when we get to 1987 on the Gold Standard Oscars podcast, unfortunately, we will not be talking about Blue Velvet.
Yes, unfortunately.
Because it did not win Best Picture. But I will be talking about it because we have our segment called If We Were the Academy, What Would We Have Picked? And hands down,
yeah,
I believe the Blue Velvet should have won Best Picture.
That would be fantastic. I got to definitely tune in for that. So, even though, hey, we've already talked Blue Velvet here on Ghostwood, so kind of beat you on that one.
We can't talk Blue Velvet every other day of the week. I mean, come on.
Yeah, it's not like there's a limit. So, so getting back to Mulholland Drive. So, we talked about this already. The 2001 neo-noir mystery film written and directed by David Lynch. The Criterion Collection Blu-ray release came out on October 27th, 2015. And after we last time we talked about the movie, ran down the cast and broke it down, but we didn't get to the special features. So do you want to talk the booklet first, or do you want to start going into the DVD, the Blu-ray special features, the interviews, or the deleted scene or the unset footage? How do you want to approach this?
Well, let's talk about the booklet first. The booklet it's not terribly long.
It's like 48 pages.
Yeah, it's not terribly long, and it's a lot of information that you do wind up hearing in other interviews on the disc. But what this is an interview with David Lynch about, there's a little bit of a, critic synopsis and analysis at the beginning of the movie. And then there's an interview with David Lynch. And it's so interesting when you try to talk about anything with David Lynch. He's he's so very
evasive.
not evasive, but reinforcing of the fact that so much of what his movies are feelings and images, not necessarily linear answers. And this is just how this, how this came together, how this looked, how it felt. It just felt right, that kind of a thing. So I always like to hear David Lynch talk about his work, because I feel like asking David Lynch questions about the work itself is always kind of futile, because I think in David Lynch's mind, it is what he saw and it is what you saw, and it's whatever whoever watches it sees.
Right.
So I don't think there's ever any a time when David Lynch is, like, for example, if David Lynch had directed Blade Runner,
yeah,
I don't think he would have ever gone on record about whether or not Rick Deckard is or is not a replicant.
Oh, I agree with that totally. Yeah, he would have left that up to the audience, who, leave it to your own interpretation. Because
right.
We've talked to other Lynch films. Obviously, we've talked Blue Velvet, we've talked Eraserhead, and it feels, this is just another example of where Lynch, I think, feels what you get out of the movie is entirely up to you.
Mm-hmm.
And and it's very subjective, and and if you don't, if what he presents isn't exactly the way you take it, or you take it differently from somebody else, he thinks that's great.
Right. He does not have a lot of issue with that, and I think that's part of why he talks a little bit in this interview about how he clashed with ABC. And there's a bit where it's kind of cute, where he says, I don't think I quite got it then, but I'm pretty sure ABC hates me. I get it now.
Yes. Yeah, that's that's what. Yeah, I mean, there's some stuff here in the booklet about that, and then there was like some stuff I think in the interviews about that.
And
so I've got some notes if you want to go down those, but it's up to you.
No, if you have the notes, go for it, and we'll.
Okay,
just go through it.
I just have some highlights. So
yeah, that's what I was saying. I mean, we don't have to we don't
have to go page by page analysis.
It's not going to be book on tape from us or something.
Yeah, because obviously we don't want to spend forever on this, but yeah.
No, because you guys should go out there and buy this. And I'm sorry it's August now, and you missed the Barnes & Noble half-off Criterion sale, but this is worth full price, and there's always next year.
Yeah, so. Right, exactly. But it's totally worth it.
I made so many bad decisions this year.
Did you make out like a bandit on the sale?
Well, sort of, yeah. I think I bought about 5 titles. But I got War of the Worlds, which is one of the new ones, and I'm very excited about.
That's cool, yeah. Unfortunately, Elephant Man was not part of that because it's not out
No,
yet.
It was not part of it because it's September, but yeah, I'll be getting that. And I'll probably, I wanted to get Rosemary's Baby, but nobody had the Blu-ray.
Oh.
So I'm just.
Yeah.
I should have ordered it, but
that leaves something for next year's sale. Maybe.
Yeah, that's true. I spent too much money because I got what did I get? War of the Worlds, the Red Shoes, the Cameraman, Local Hero, and then I got that box set, that America Lost and Found box set that has like 5 Easy Pieces and Head and The Last Picture Show.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Well, when was I going to buy that for half off ever? That's when you have to buy the box sets.
That's a good point. So Head was in that. That's interesting. The monkey.
Yeah. The monkey's head. So.
Yep. That's cool. So stuff I got notes on. We find out that Lynch lives just off Mulholland Drive, the actual Mulholland Drive, and also used it, of course, as a location for one of Xan's favorite scenes, the Mr. Eddie tailgating scene in Lost Highway.
I want you to get a manual.
Yep. That's a film we're gonna have to talk about at some point.
Say you're gonna get a manual.
Yes, everyone's favorite road nightmare is Robert Loggia going off on them.
Oh my God! Oh my God! It's Robert Loggia.
It's going full Loggia.
Full on Loggia.
Yeah. So the initial.
That's another thing I love about listening to David Lynch talk.
Yeah.
even in an interview or not. I wish I could see David Lynch's Los Angeles. I feel like there's a Los Angeles that David Lynch sees that I haven't seen before. And his love of the city, I don't share it, and I don't see the same thing, but I want to see the Los Angeles David Lynch sees.
Yeah, apparently there's somewhere in the interviews that he was talking about how Lynch like got there at night in Los Angeles.
Yes.
Except for when he moved there, and then apparently he woke up the next day, and then he describes the sun as like the brightest sunrise or whatever that he'd ever seen. And it just
Which is very similar.
And it filled him with all this creativity, and he knew
Right.
this is where he needed to be.
And that reminds me of the scene where Betty gets off the airplane.
Yeah.
And she's looking around, and it's so bright, and I don't believe it. She's so excited to be there. So
she's all happy and beaming, and yeah.
Yeah. Like there's this Los Angeles that I don't think exists anymore. Like David Lynch's Los Angeles, or Alex Cox's Los Angeles, or X's Los Angeles
Yeah.
or something. I don't feel like they exist anymore. Like, I would love to see New York, 1930s New York, but that's never going to happen.
No,
So,
no, not unless you find a TARDIS
Yeah.
somewhere. Yeah, exactly.
Where's my TARDIS, darn it?
Exactly, but that's a whole different podcast.
It's out in the backyard, but the Brigadier won't let me in it.
Yeah, Brigadier shakes fist. So apparently during the initial pitch of ABC consisted of a woman trying to become a star in Hollywood, and at the same time finding herself becoming a detective and possibly going out to a dangerous world.
And see, I think
That's the elevator pitch.
ABC. Yeah, I think ABC thought this was going to be way more linear than it actually is.
Yeah. Apparently having never watched their own Twin Peaks, right?
Right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Oh yeah. So apparently Lynch wanted to put a small piece of Sunset Boulevard music into the film.
Mm-hmm.
But he talks about that Paramount won't let you show their logo on their gate anymore.
I know. What is up with that?
And so he did quite, get a piece of the gate, but you can't show the top part with the logo on it.
Right.
And but apparently the car in that shot is the actual Sunset Boulevard car.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
And what is so.
And
he
must have been so happy about finding that car.
Yeah, because who was looking for that car in Sunset Boulevard? Gordon Cole.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they don't really mention that in this interview, but yeah, there's been a real Sunset Boulevard connection with David Lynch for a long time. So
yeah, obviously with the Gordon Cole reference especially. Maybe that's a movie we need to review here on the podcast, Sunset Boulevard.
I think we probably do.
Since apparently this was the the grandfather of all Twin Peaks related movies.
Mm-hmm. Sunset Boulevard, Mulholland Drive. Yeah.
Yep.
No, I hear you. Yeah, we should totally do it.
I think that would be relevant, especially for the Gordon Cole reference. Lynch always worries about the studios forcing him to do things, which of course is why he always insists on having final cut.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense.
And that's the thing. If you don't want a David Lynch movie, don't hire David Lynch.
Yeah.
It's like we pretty much know what he's about these days.
It's kind of like right there on the packaging what he's about. So
yeah,
he doesn't hide.
Hi, I'm David Lynch. I don't think you want me directing your Trolls sequel.
Yeah, exactly. Or Toy Story 5.
Oh my God, I would freaking love that. David Lynch's
Toy Story.
David Lynch's Toy Story 5. It would
now,
just be like,
Woody, I want you to no.
Yeah.
You and Buzz Lightyear.
Woody, Jesse's on the horn. Yeah, it would be amazing.
That was Peachy Keen, guys. Peachy Keen.
That means he loved it.
Exactly. So Lynch was apparently listening to Billy Ray Cyrus at one point, who wasn't on the casting list, and thought,
but is that's such a standout.
That's Gene the Pool Man.
Just Gene the Pool Man, yeah. We got to get him. Find me Billy Ray Cyrus.
Exactly.
So,
Get Billy Ray on the horn. Yeah, exactly.
oh my gosh, yeah, that was where he's talking about casting, about how, and this is an interesting point, and it's very true that there are certain people that you really can't cast for television.
No.
When you cast for television, you cast different faces than you do for movies. And one thing he said is like, because you're pretty much sure that Harrison Ford is off the table when you're doing something for television.
Yeah, yeah.
And I thought that was interesting because I feel like everybody in this movie does such a good job of being movie stars that it's okay, but then you have somebody like a Chad Everett, who I feel like is kind of like a TV guy, like a TV movie of the week type of a person.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
I thought that it was a good mixture of people who could do well in TV and who can do well in film.
Yeah. Well, there's something that's kind of interesting. If we get to the Johanna Ray interview,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
where she talks about that all Lynch is focused on are headshots, how people look.
He just wants pictures, and
he doesn't care about if they can act or not.
Right. He'll figure that as is illustrated by Monty Montgomery, and we can talk about that in a little bit too.
Yeah, exactly. So that's kind of interesting. He's more focused on the look, or if someone if he can picture them in the movie, and that's kind of interesting to me.
Right.
And probably really frustrating to most casting directors, which is probably why he always goes to Johanna Ray.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah. So this is the big, I'm sure this answers a lot of people's questions. Lynch says that the Denny's restaurant on Sunset Boulevard inspired the Winkies.
Right. Makes sense.
And he thinks there was a satanic booth.
Yeah, he said he was there on like a Sunday morning here listening to a conversation about God, and he turned around, it was the Church of Satan, like elders from the Church of Satan.
Yeah, exactly. Then he thought well, they're just having this really nice talk about God. And I love that. Yep. I love that he was having a Grand Slam breakfast.
What are those, $4.99? I mean, everybody's, everybody likes value.
Bring me the Grand Slam.
Grand Slam and coffee, hot, black.
Thank you, ma'am. Exactly.
That was one thing and we keep going over the interviews, but what is up with Justin Theroux? He's talking about how he's a big David Lynch fan, but he's never seen David Lynch. Did you not watch Twin Peaks, Justin Theroux?
Exactly.
What's the matter with you?
Yeah. I think something a little off about it. Doesn't quite jibe, does it?
He doesn't quite get it, I don't think.
Yeah, I don't think so. Actors, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
And then Lynch is attracted to the past. I thought this was interesting. It explains a lot because he was something he felt watching the R Gang comedies as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
He felt the 30s, a place back in time.
Right.
So essentially, he fell in love with the idea of watching something before his time. And that's something that kind of has carried through, especially in movies like Blue Velvet.
Right.
Or Mulholland Drive, because Mulholland Drive has a lot of that retro feel to it.
Has a lot of that retro feel, and it has a lot of that, like with Ann Miller, the Hollywood old guard. And
yeah.
He also mentions in this interview about how we spend a lot of our time listening to retro music and watching retro TV, but moving towards the future. We're always looking back, even though we're always moving forward, which I thought was a very interesting statement.
Well, I think it's also because we don't really want to lose the past as we go forward.
No, we don't, and I think
because we get nostalgic and whatnot, and so there's that kind of that disconnect a little bit because you're so instead you want to move forward, but you're so afraid to let go of the past.
Right, as Billy Bragg once said, nostalgia is the opium of the age.
Right,
and you see it all the time with people. Things were better in my day, or they don't make movies like that anymore. Or I don't know what's wrong with kids these days, and I don't know if it's fear of change or fear of the unknown or a little bit of both. But
I would argue both, personally.
What does Ed Helms say on The Office? I wish you knew you were in the good old days when you were still in them. Because and then there's that Onion article that I love, that man always wistful for 3 years ago. Like it doesn't. It's like bands were better, food was better, movies were better, always like 3 years ago.
Yeah,
so
that's funny.
It's very true. We spend a lot of our time listening to things from the past while moving towards the future.
Yeah. I say this as I'm seeing Xan surrounded by all her CDs and me surrounded by all my comic books.
Yes, our physical media. I can't wait for CDs to come back the way that like cassettes are coming back right now. Like,
well, vinyl came back, cassettes come back, CDs got to come back eventually, right?
yeah, they're gonna have their comeback, and then everybody. I just want to know.
Eventually, all the vinyl snobs will be like, well, ooh, CDs, that's new. Like, you mean I can have the entire album on one side?
On one side, and I don't have to lift the arm of anything. Yeah, I want to know what everybody who gives me crap about still having my CDs, what do they do with theirs? Did they just throw them out one day?
I know. It seems
Did they just say, "Oh, Spotify exists now. Back up the dumpster, honey"? Like, right. I don't get it. I mean,
if you sold them, I get that because at least you're getting money for it. But
yeah, I got a CD player in 1991, and I have some CDs from that year. I still have them.
Yeah, I do too, because I got mine. I think it would be 87. I think I got mine.
Okay, yeah.
Because my first three, I can actually remember my first three CDs. So it was "Every Breath You Take" the singles by the Police.
Ugh, I hate that remake of Don't Stand So Close.
I understand. Yeah, but I mean, it was like a greatest hits album. So
it's a greatest hits album.
Yeah. That one remake. Well, it was the remake that broke up the band. Mm-hmm. So, and then Sting's Sting's "Nothing Like the Sun" solo album, which is a fantastic album.
That is a good one.
And REM's "Green."
Excellent choices.
Those are my first 3 CDs ever.
Nice.
Yeah.
My first CD was Tears for Fears, Songs from the Big Chair.
That's a good one.
And it is to this day still one of those records that I can listen to all the way through. I don't want to skip any tracks.
Yeah.
So, and then I don't remember what was after that, but yeah, I mean, it's like, I got rid of my tapes because...
I think my fourth one was U2's The Joshua Tree.
Nice.
Yeah.
Excellent. My fourth, I did have tapes that I just wound up getting rid of because I didn't really have much to play them on anymore.
Yeah.
And, the CDs always had more tracks, so I wound up replacing most of my tapes, but I replaced them. It's not like I just chucked them all in the garbage one day.
Right.
So.
Yeah, most of mine, like, I had a bunch of, like, stuff that I had taped off the radio.
Mm-hmm.
So as far as I'm concerned, well, if I've replaced it with CDs, that's much better.
Yeah, you're good. And I had stuff that I would buy at used kids records. They had tapes for like $1, and I'd be like, "Oh, this is for the car."
Yeah.
I had like the car. I had a couple of albums that I had a car copy of.
When we still had cassettes in cars.
When we still had cassette players in the car, yeah. I had Joe Jackson's "Look Sharp" on cassette, and either on CD or vinyl, maybe all 3. But I wanted a car copy of it.
Yeah. Right.
So, yeah. But yeah, I mean, I guess I don't feel like, but the thing is, I still do Spotify, so I don't feel like I'm trying to hold on to something. I just never got rid of it,
Yeah. I mean,
it's all just still there.
Well, for me, like, I listen to Sirius XM for the stuff that I don't have in my collection.
Mm-hmm. And to learn about new bands.
Yeah, exactly.
You're not going to learn about new bands if you're just listening to all your old stuff, but still, I want to, I'm not going to just throw away my crap, All
right. So, getting back to Mulholland Drive before everybody's like, would you guys get back to the film already? Hey, it's us. We tend to do this. Go figure.
We could retitle this Digression Theater.
Pretty much. We should. Yeah. Because that's what we do. That's what we do. Let's see what else. So Lynch was told by ABC that the cut needed to be 88 minutes for a 2-hour time slot.
Oh God.
But his cut was around 2 hours and 5 minutes.
Yeah, he was trying to talk them into a 3-hour time slot.
Yeah.
Which I think, MASH has done and maybe the Thornbirds has done, and like that's about it.
Right, exactly. It's like it's not a miniseries, David.
88 minutes. Do you realize that is 32 minutes of commercials?
Yes.
For 2 hours.
Yeah, and that was something that apparently that just frustrated him to no end. So he had an idea to cut that into 2 and make the first part the pilot. But ABC insisted on the 88-minute version.
ABC could suck it.
And he felt that was a nightmare. And then, of course, ABC never calls him or spoke to him about the 88-minute version, but instead called other people to tell him about it, that he didn't like it.
And he finds out about when he's in the bathroom getting ready to get on a plane that it's not going to happen.
I love that he makes the comment like, "Yeah, I was taking a leak before I got on the plane."
I was taking a leak before I got in the car to go to the airport.
Like he couldn't just say I was getting it just before I got on the plane. No, he's had to say, I was taking a leak.
Gotta love David Lynch's honesty. He's Midwestern. He knows how this works.
Well, he's just giving the straight story, right? So,
I see what you did there.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Lynch keeps flirting with TV despite his bad experiences because he loves the continuing story aspect.
He likes the continuing story aspect, but it's hard because one person can't direct all of those episodes.
Yeah.
And so, any other director is going to put their own flavor on it. So, while he sometimes likes that idea, sometimes it's hard to give that up.
Yeah. Because he just loves the idea that the story can just go on and on and on, which is kind of like probably why he did things like the cliffhanger with Cooper and Bob at the end of season 2, and then Laura Palmer's Scream at the end of season 3. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Just to keep it going.
Right. Just the story continues with or without him. It's almost like, maybe there's some sort of other dimension in, where David Lynch movies keep going, like Wes Craven's New Nightmare or The Dark Half, where your character lives even though you're not writing it anymore.
Welcome to another dimension.
That would be interesting.
Yeah. You're a fan of this show, so I thought I'd mention this. Lynch feels that On the Air, which ABC canceled after 3 episodes.
He was very dismissive of On the Air. I'm not happy about that.
I didn't think you would be, because he dismisses it as a, quote, pretty stupid comedy, but some people think it's funny.
I'm some people.
You are some people.
I think it's hilarious. And there were 3 episodes, and I taped all 3 of them.
I did too.
I had all 3 of those on tape for years.
Yeah. I lost my tape, but I did tape them.
Yeah.
And I was disappointed there wasn't more. And then
if that wacko puppet lays a finger on me again, he'll be at the near Salvation Army barracks sucking wind at the bottom of an orphan's barrel before the sweat dries on your hand. Do I make myself clear?
Excellent. Excellent quotation. Excellent recital. Perfect.
Thank you very much.
Talks about Pierre Edelman from the French company Studio Canal, talking that apparently he asked Lynch for his permission to look at the pilot on tape.
Apparently there was like a tape of that circulating around.
Apparently there's like 30 of them from what Lynch is talking about. I know.
And David Lynch is like, oh, it's so embarrassing because not only is it a crappy version, it's a crappy copy. Yeah. Like it's a bad VHS.
Right, exactly. So it's like you really don't want to look at this. But Pierre apparently insisted and then came back a day later saying, I loved it. And let's make a feature out of this. So, which of course took like a year and a half later to finally happen. When he was asked about his love of putting women in trouble and making them cry on Twin Peaks and Mulholland Drive,
he says, I know, what is that all about?
Yeah, he's just like at first he says like he doesn't know what it is that fascinates him, but then he turns around and says, oh, well, I don't want to say what it is because it won't be enough. So he kind of contradicts himself a little bit there. That's
mysterious.
It's David Lynch. It comes with the territory, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And then lastly in this, the other last note I had, he said that Rebecca Del Rio knows Barbara Orbison.
Yes, which I thought was interesting.
Roy's second wife, and she is the one who translated Crying into Spanish.
Which I think is really cool.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool that Roy's wife was on board with that.
Right, and the whole thing he talked about with Rebecca Del Rio and how he had thought about putting Crying in Blue Velvet, but went with In Dreams instead. So I thought that was an interesting story about how Roy Orbison's just been bouncing around in David Lynch's head for years.
Yeah. And which is not a problem because, I mean, I'm a huge Roy Orbison fan, so I totally get that.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yep. So that's all I have from the booklet, unless you had anything else you wanted to add.
No, that was about it. I think like I said, David Lynch's Los Angeles sounds like a much more interesting place than Los Angeles I've ever been to.
Yeah, a lot less seedy. Let's just put it that way.
But seedy, but in an interesting way.
Well, and with Lynch though,
Yeah.
there's always that dark side. So
Yeah.
it's not like he runs from it. He just kind of peels it back a little
Mm-hmm.
bit every so
Yeah.
often. So there's a trailer on this. It's 1 minute 42 seconds if you want to check it out.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's 4 sets of interviews.
There's one deleted scene.
Yeah, just one deleted scene. Do you want to talk about the deleted scene while we're?
Yeah, let's get the deleted scene out of the way, just because
Okay.
it's
Yeah, because we didn't talk about it last time, so we should cover that.
Yeah, no, it's the two cops talking about what they found, and I didn't feel like it was a particularly necessary scene. Like I don't feel like
No, I think it was a good cut, personally.
Because sometimes you watch deleted scenes and you think, why did you cut this out? This is great or something. And the only thing that I thought was really interesting about this one is that, first of all, I like seeing those two actors. Both of them are no longer with us, and so it's fun to see them.
Yeah, Brent Briscoe and Robert Forster.
Right, but Brent Briscoe mentioned something about how they can't find fingerprints on these guys. There's no fingerprint records of the guys in the car.
Yeah.
And I thought that was interesting because, do they not exist? Did this actually not happen?
I think that was something that, because it was for the TV pilot, that maybe it was like an idea they planted, and then maybe later on they would do something with.
Something like that, but it almost makes you wonder, did these guys this actually happen?
Yeah.
So I thought that was interesting, but I did not think it was necessary to be put back in the movie.
Yeah, and I think it was a good idea for a cut, and but also, I thought it was also interesting that the wallets that he found were apparently filled with phony credit cards that came from the two guys in the Cadillac. So what was the deal? Were they, the phony credit cards, were they like gangsters, or what was the deal with the guys in the Cadillac?
See, that's the thing. I don't know.
And we never will.
We still don't know. But that's the thing. We don't need to for this to be a satisfying movie.
No, and maybe that's why that was cut, so that you wouldn't be asking those questions.
Right, because the point of the guys in the car are to get in a car accident and to get Rita where she needs to be. That was their only.
Right.
Yeah, that was their only thing.
Okay, so we had, like I said, we had 4 interviews. One was David Lynch and Naomi Watts. 2 was Laura Harring, Johanna Ray, Justin Theroux, and Naomi Watts.
Mm-hmm.
Another one was Angelo Badalamenti, which had a couple of interesting things. And last one was Peter Deming, the director of photography, and Jack Fisk, the production designer.
Right.
So what do you want to tackle first? Lynch and Naomi Watts? Is that kind of the big one?
Yeah, we can tackle Lynch and Naomi Watts. I thought this was a really sweet interview because the two of them just seemed to really genuinely like each other. And there were some cute moments where he was talking about how when she came in, she didn't look like her picture.
Yes.
So this interview was first on the list, so we haven't heard Johanna Ray talk about how David Lynch is obsessed with pictures. But he says that she didn't look like her picture, and she's like, was that disappointing? He's like, no, it was devastating. And they just laugh about it, which I thought was adorable.
Yeah.
I thought that was so cute. And he's so nurturing when he talks to her, and just always reminding her how talented she is, and how she said that she was thinking about going back home to Australia because it just wasn't working, and then this happened.
Well, that's something I thought was interesting because not just Naomi Watts, but also Laura Harring was ready to give up her career.
Mm-hmm. She was a VJ. I had no idea. I did not remember that at all.
Yeah, she was on like VH1 or something.
I did not remember that at all.
I didn't remember that either. I had no clue, but apparently so. I mean, I could see it because she obviously had the look, but
Naomi Watts talks about how on the day they were supposed to film the masturbation scene, she had a horrible stomachache.
Yeah, well, apparently, I put notes on this. She had butterflies in her stomach because she was so nervous about it, and then Lynch supposedly tried to make her feel safe by putting a tent around her.
Yeah.
And there's 35 guys, crew standing around outside the tent.
Right.
And
that's almost creepier.
Well, and then she's freaking out. She's like, I can't do this. And she's yelling at Lynch, and he's apparently just eerily calm in that David Lynch way, talking through his
Like,
megaphone,
okay,
like, "Okay, Naomi, okay," and
okay.
and somehow she got through it. And
Yeah, which he knew she could do it, you
yeah,
know?
and so yeah, but she was mad at him for making her do it, and then somehow that transferred into like, "Oh, I'm glad you made me do this," or whatever.
Yeah. Well, and
So
it's like later on, when Laura Harring was like, "Ladies, we're doing this, and there's gonna be nudity."
yeah, yeah,
Like, it's gonna be a movie now, so buckle up.
yeah, we're going for a ride. So
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
it's
Well,
like,
and then
well, it's like it's the French, they want to see the nudity.
it's Studio Canal. We need boobies. So, um, I also loved the story he told about meeting Rebecca Del Rio.
Yeah, she
He meets her.
like right off the street. He said,
Yeah, right up the street. She sings. That recording's in the movie. History.
yeah, and apparently that was the only one she did, and it
I
made
know,
and that was it.
and
And
it's amazing.
yeah, it is. So she knocked it out of the park the first time.
Mm-hmm.
So that was pretty cool. So let's see what else. Some other things and notes. Um, let's see. When Naomi Watts spent like 10 years of auditioning in LA, then until she got the call to meet David Lynch.
Mm-hmm.
And then she like says Lynch was beaming with light and energy, and which allowed her to show herself. And he asked her questions, and she felt like she could ask him questions, which apparently no other director had
That's cool.
done. So like she's crying by the
Mm-hmm.
end of the interview.
It's so sweet. And then he's like, "Oh, I love you so much, Naomi."
Yeah.
And
So
it's really sweet to watch the two of them together.
yeah. Lynch was talking about apparently um, after getting the talk with Pierre Edelman that took about a year and a half. He said the sets, the wardrobe, and the props were quote put back into the stream or destroyed.
Yeah, like they got put into, like the wardrobe got put into the Disney rotation, and then they couldn't find a lot of it, so they had to recreate a lot of it. And Jack Fisk was like, "No."
Yeah, and then of course Lynch is talking about how he had like zero ideas, but then he says that night he sat down and meditated,
Mm-hmm.
and then supposedly after that, that's one idea after another came out, like he says, a string of pearls, and then he knew exactly what to do.
Right. Whatever
And
works.
Lynch calls Naomi, says it might be happening. She gets like 18 extra pages of script.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently the thing that popped out to her where she understood her character was the audition scene.
Oh, yes. Yes. Where I love the dichotomy between her reading the lines with Lara Herring,
With Rita, yeah.
with Rita, and then going in to the
Yeah.
director with Chad Everett and being so much better.
Well, you mean the one
And
with
really
Chad Everett?
changing the feel of it.
It's with Chad Everett, it's much more intimate and whispery
Mm-hmm.
and seductive.
Yeah.
And then
And she's so much scarier with her, "I'll kill you."
yeah,
It's just
pretty much, yeah.
yeah. She really is amazing with that. This is the girl.
This is the girl, exactly.
Yeah.
Um, and then she talks about Lynch pushing her with Betty's arrival in LA, like she had just tasted ice cream for the first time.
I know, isn't that adorable?
That's a great description. She feels that like he lets an actor do what they want to do, and then he suggests what he thinks is missing.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, go nuts, and then if I don't get what I want, then I'll suggest stuff.
Then I'll tell you. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. Let's see what else. The musical theme for Mulholland Drive was apparently Angelo Badalamenti working on two Russian themes,
Mm-hmm.
and Lynch says he suggested putting them together.
Right. Right.
And he says he'll sit with Angelo at the piano and then talk words to him. Then something will catch Angelo and he'll compose something, which is something that gets explored a little bit more in Angelo's interview.
Right, but he says that, he really feels connected to Angelo, that he can say things to him and Angelo knows exactly what he's thinking.
Yeah.
So I think that's an interesting relationship also.
Naomi discussed the scene with the hitman making mistakes,
Oh, that is
which,
so funny.
which she thought shows Lynch's humor, which is something
It
we
does.
talked about.
Yeah.
And then
It's very dark humor, but it's funny.
and then Lynch brings up the love scene right after that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like she's talking about something joking, and then he counters with her love scene with Laura Harring.
And I liked how she was saying, I was really nervous, but I'm watching it. It's pretty hot, and I'm glad it's on film.
Yeah, she says, "I'm glad it's on celluloid." I thought it was
Yeah.
yeah, that was pretty good. Um, and they got Ann Miller because Lynch's assistant went to a screening.
And she was sitting in front of her.
Yeah,
And they're like, let's get her.
yeah, and then suggested like, yeah, Ann should be Coco, and Lynch was like, hell yeah,
Yeah, she should be. Let's do that.
you're darn tootin' she should be.
And Ann Miller literally had not been in a movie since 1976
Right.
when this happened. So
Um,
she sort of came out of retirement to do Mulholland Drive.
Now, Lynch also talked about that he felt that Monty Montgomery was perfect as the cowboy, but Monty cannot memorize a line to
Right.
save his life.
To save his life, which is very true. And Justin Theroux talks a little bit more about that in his interview, in the next interview.
But something I thought he added here that I thought was interesting. Monty apparently brought his own wardrobe as the cowboy.
Yes, he did.
Which were Tom Mix's clothes that apparently he probably owns.
He probably bought those at auction, so that's what he wore, which is fascinating.
Yeah, so for those who don't know, Tom Mix was a very early Western movie star.
Yes.
Like with the earliest Westerns,
cowboys.
the 20s and the 30s that they had. Became very famous and popular in pop culture. So and he had a very distinctive look, which is obviously we see in as the cowboy.
He looked kind of like Monty Montgomery. I'm just kidding.
Oddly enough, right?
Oddly enough, yeah.
Yeah. And then the interview closed with Lynch and Naomi saying how fortunate they were. Lynch calmed Naomi's insecurities about not being good enough.
And that, that's so sweet. I think that's one thing, and we didn't talk too much about this, Charles, but there is a bit on this DVD of just behind the scenes footage.
Right.
Where you watch, there's not much to say about it.
The on-set footage, yeah.
Yeah, it's the Winky scene where she's trying to hire the hitman to kill, I can't think of her name.
Camilla?
Can't think of the characters. Camilla, yes.
Yeah. And she flubs the line.
She does a couple of times, and
it was right after the "This is the girl" line too.
This is the girl. Yeah. David Lynch, when you watch his process as a director, he's so patient and kind. And I think that's one of the neatest things about David Lynch. And one of the things that I don't think people understand about David Lynch, he's very patient, he's very kind, he doesn't rush anything, and he tries to get the best out of people by giving them positive reinforcement. And so many people think that people who make weird movies are weirdos, but everyone talks about how David Lynch is just a sweet, friendly guy. And these behind the scenes, the behind the scenes footage that we've been able to see on this DVD and on the Twin Peaks DVDs, he's really a very, very kind director who's really trying to get the best out of his people. And he wouldn't work with you if he didn't think you would work.
It almost feels like he takes a fatherly approach to his actresses.
Yeah, to everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I mean, he in the scene you were talking about where she flubbed the line, he sits her down and he kind of focuses her until she gets it right. So
because she keeps screwing it up and then being nervous about the fact that she's going to screw it up, and then she of course screws it up again. So
right, exactly. So he calmed her down, and then they got through it.
Yep.
So while we're talking about the on-set footage, we see stuff like the secret path, with the where Camilla leads Diana to the car, and then something I thought was interesting was Angelo being on set calling Lynch his second best wife.
I thought that was adorable.
Yeah.
His actual wife is his first best wife.
Yeah.
That was so funny.
But Angelo makes a comment that apparently Lynch, unlike most directors who go to the composer after finishing the movie, Lynch asked him his thoughts during filming.
Yes.
That's what he appreciates. And we see Lynch like putting the final touches in the pool set, even like asking the pool chairs to be removed because it's not what he sees or wants to see. And then we got that dining room scene where Adam is whispering into Camilla's ear, and they giggle during the announcement.
Yeah, they giggle during the announcement. Yep.
Yeah. So we got to see that, and then we get to see like close-ups of Diane's reaction to the announcement and stuff. So,
which is, and I love David Lynch's direction that you look just a little too long.
Right.
It's so subtle, but it works so well.
Well, and I think it's his credit as an artist that he's able to express, and describe things so that you do imagine them in your head.
Mm-hmm.
And I think maybe that helps a lot of actors visualize what they need to do.
I think so.
And then obviously it works with Angelo. So apparently that's like David Lynch's superpower.
Yeah, it works for me.
Yeah. So do you want to talk Laura Harring, Johanna Ray? Justin and Naomi Watts, the one of the second biggest interview, I think.
The second biggest interview, it's Johanna Ray talking about the process of casting, about how you look at people that you think will work, and then you bring the best ones that, just sort of her process. And this is where she talks about how David Lynch is very interested in seeing pictures. He's more interested in a picture than he is in, like, when you quote auditioning for David Lynch, you're not seeing your picture. He's seeing your picture, and then you are having like a talk with him.
Yeah.
So it's not really a traditional audition. So she talks about how she takes away the headshots of people who she thinks are bad actors, because that I thought was
funny, because he would just focus on the look and not worry about their acting ability.
Because she thinks that, and they would have some auditions before David Lynch got there. She would take some photos and then show David Lynch the photos, because what she didn't want him doing was picking a bad actor and saying, this is the girl, and then having to be told, like, no, this person can't carry what you need them to carry.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really interesting. And she talked about how she first met David Lynch, and they met through Dino De Laurentiis, because...
wasn't it Raffaella? It was Raffaella De Laurentiis.
Oh, yes, it was Raffaella, because they had worked on...
Red Sonja,
and she'd worked on Conan also.
Yeah.
And David Lynch had worked, of course, on Dune. So, and this was interesting to me, because for me, and I think it's because of the age I was at the time.
Yeah.
But with around the time of Red Sonja and Conan, he was finishing up Dune, but starting to work on Blue Velvet.
Right. And he didn't have time to go through all the casting.
Right. So he was saying, hey, once you're done with this Red Sonja thing, do this.
Yeah.
Work with me on Blue Velvet. And it's weird to me to think of those movies being even remotely close to each other in time periods, because, first of all, they're such different movies.
Right.
And for me, the early 80s.
But you think about it, Blue Velvet was 84.
No,
I'm sorry.
Dune was 84.
You're right. Dune was 84.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. You're right. You're absolutely right.
Dune was 84 and Blue Velvet was 87. That's only 3 years.
That's true. Yeah.
But to me, it feels like there's an ocean of time, and I think it's because of what my life was like at the time.
Yeah.
I was a child, and for me, the early 80s and the later 80s, there's a great divide between them, because I moved at the beginning of 1985. Like, I want to say January 2nd, 1985 is when I moved to where I grew up in Worthington. So it's like I spent the first part of the 80s in one place and the second part of the 80s in another place. So there's this huge marker between everything. So it doesn't feel like it, like now 3 years feels like nothing.
Yeah.
But back then a lot happened to me in 3 years. So it felt like, new house, new schools, new friends. I mean, a lot of things transpired for me. So it feels like a million years between those two movies, but it's only 3. And I never really stopped to think about that. Like, yeah, this is pretty, you would just go right in, and you're not going to, when you make a movie, the entire movie isn't done like, in 3 weeks of that year.
No,
You know,
there's some overlap.
you're writing a script, you're getting a cast, you're finding locations. So I just thought that was interesting about it, that how much that just sort of hit me like, yeah, wow, these movies really were close to each other.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, because I guess he was doing like post-production on Dune at the same time of
Hmm.
casting Blue Velvet.
Right, right.
And apparently he knew he wanted Kyle MacLachlan.
That was the only thing he knew is he wanted
Yeah.
Kale.
Yeah. Kale, yeah, exactly. His nickname for Kyle MacLachlan.
Yep.
And then for Mulholland, I guess Joanna keeps all these photo albums, like these large group photo albums, like 24 of them. And Lynch said, "Yeah, just bring your photo albums and we'll go through it and cast the
Right.
movie."
And she said that she was surprised that not many people knew who Naomi Watts was at the time, because Johanna Ray thought she was wonderful. She really liked her a lot, and Naomi Watts was feeling like a real failure when this movie came up. Like she was going to move, like I said, she was going to move back to Australia. She was going to pack it in, but she was friends with Nicole Kidman, who kept saying, "Just something's going to come.
Hmm.
Something's going to come." So
I knew her from Tank Girl, but that was about it.
that was what I knew her from also, and I love her in Tank Girl.
Yeah, exactly. I thought something that I thought was interesting was Johanna talks about the casting procedure.
Mm-hmm.
And she says that, like, first you make a list of who you think would be right for the lead roles.
Right.
And then you pick someone off that list, and if they accept, then you start with the other roles.
Mm-hmm.
So just a little insight into the casting process.
Yeah, her process was very interesting.
But obviously Lynch's casting process is a little different.
His is a little superficial, I think.
A little bit, yeah, I'd say so.
A little on the superficial side, yeah.
Yeah, when he's looking at the headshots, going, yeah, this is the girl. Going, yeah.
This is the girl. And then Laura Harring, this was interesting. She was talking about, first of all, Johanna Ray met her because she had apparently done a movie for her son Paul Del Rey.
Yeah.
So
like this low budget film. Yeah.
Like a low budget film, so that's how she knew who she was. And she was late to her meeting with David Lynch because she was in a car accident.
Right.
And then David Lynch said
she got like so excited when she got the call to meet David Lynch that she ended up like she was on the freeway and then bumped the car in front of her.
Right.
So then she had to call back and say, well, like, sorry, I can't come in because I was just in an accident. Can I do tomorrow?
Like, yeah, and she gets there like, you know that your character starts off in a car accident, right? Like this is kismet.
Woo!
So
yeah, exactly.
There's that.
And pretty scary stuff, eh, kids?
Pretty scary, huh, kids?
Yeah.
And Justin Theroux was in New York, and so he had to send a tape. So he had a little bit more of a traditional,
audition,
more of a traditional thing. And then he tells the story about Molly Montgomery's scene.
Yes, I love this.
Since he can't memorize his lines, Justin Theroux was talking about. He said, so he knows that he's not an actor, so he said, hey, you want to run lines with me? He's like, no, I got it. I looked at it this morning. He gets like 3 words in and he can't remember anything. So
he didn't understand he had to memorize this stuff.
He didn't quite understand that the depth of memorization. So Justin Theroux said that they had to have Monty Montgomery's dialogue taped to Justin Theroux's like forehead and his chest.
Yeah, I thought it was
funny. So that's why they sort of shot him from behind because, and I've been looking to see if you could see like a little corner of a piece of paper or something, but they did a good job of hiding it. But yeah, it's like Kal-El's diaper in the original Superman movie that Brando is reading from. But Monty Montgomery was friends with David Lynch, and so he liked the look and thought he was good for it. And he's great. His delivery is perfect, and even Justin Theroux said it makes him sound even more like otherworldly because he's so monotone and his eyes are kind of going weird ways because he's reading dialogue.
Yeah. So they apparently like tried to shout out the lines first, and that didn't work.
Yeah, they tried a bunch of stuff, but it was just not working. But so he had to read it off of Justin Theroux's body.
That's hilarious.
Yeah,
I thought that was funny. And then Justin didn't think that was going to work until he actually saw the film.
Yeah, he said this is gonna look like a nightmare, but he said it worked perfectly.
Yeah. That was good. Apparently, Johanna said that a lot of actors took small roles in Mulholland Drive, expecting that the TV series would lead to something bigger.
Right. She said that a lot of people were in it because they thought they'd be in more of it. So
Yeah,
that's why you have like a Robert Forster as a cop who is only there for 5 minutes.
yeah, someone that a bigger name than you would normally get for that kind of a role.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And apparently that's kind of like the norm. Like that sometimes like they'll do that with the hope of something bigger coming down the line.
Yeah, and that it certainly worked out for Robert
Yeah.
Forster 20 years later.
Yeah. Justin Theroux talked about ABC sending a memo that Adam couldn't smoke. And there
That
apparently
was bizarre.
and then
Yeah.
there was a rule about the dog shit that got Lynch protesting about it, which I think was kind of funny.
Yeah, I love David Lynch's argument for that. He's like, yeah, people smoke, you know?
Right.
And show me one child that hasn't seen dog poop in their life. I mean, come on.
Yeah. It is pretty
So,
silly. But I mean that's the whole network standards and practices that is just
and
ridiculous rules.
what are standards and practices? But at the time, too, ABC was ABC Family. So it was when ABC and Disney first got into bed with each other.
Right.
So I'm sure it was even worse than it was in 1989 when he started trying to get Twin Peaks taken care of.
Oh yeah.
So
Exactly.
yeah.
Naomi Watts apparently didn't know that she would have both Betty and Diane.
Yeah,
So,
that was new for her. So she was
yeah.
like, "Wait, what?"
Yeah, so like she shot the pilot and all she had was Betty with a hint that Betty would change. And she describes Diane as freaky and messed up, but fun for an actor to play.
Oh, I'm sure. Aside from masturbating on screen, but other than that,
Yeah, whatever. No big deal, right?
no big deal.
And you already kind of talked about the nudity thing, so I won't mention that. But let's see. Justin said he would ask Lynch questions about who his character was or where he was going, and Lynch would go, "I don't know. Let's find out."
And I think that's a great lesson for David Lynch, for people in David Lynch. It's like, look, whatever you think is going to happen is going to be a 180 tomorrow.
Right.
These are not linear people. There's not going to be, point A to point B and on weekends point C. You're not going to have that.
Yeah.
So you just gotta let David Lynch happen.
Apparently,
I've said it before.
Him. Yeah, just have a very zen approach to it.
Yeah, just let it happen. And it's nice to know that David Lynch has a zen approach to life with meditation and that kind of mental control.
Don't think, just let it happen.
Don't think, just let it happen. Yeah. Just fly.
Naomi said that she would ask questions as well, but Lynch would delight in the mystery of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then she'd end up relaxing and trusting him as a result.
Yeah, that's kind of all you can do.
Yeah. Laura Harring sees Lynch as like a poet, working with metaphors and similes.
Mm-hmm, that makes sense.
The moment you walk on his set, you're walking into his world, she says. And this I really loved. So Laura said that Lynch prepared her and Naomi before going to Cannes.
Oh yeah,
for the
that's
premiere,
right.
And says, "Girls, you know that at Cannes they can boo you. So keep your chin up, because creativity is an art form that nobody can really judge. It's your expression, and your expression is good enough." Unquote.
I love that.
That should be, that should be on like placards somewhere.
It really should, because David Lynch is so right. Creativity in itself is the art form.
Yeah.
And it is 100% subjective. The reason why Ed Wood movies are so bad,
right,
is because you can see the string, you can see the headstones falling over. It's daytime 1 minute, nighttime the next minute. It's technical reasons why they're so bad. But it's still a creative process. There's still value in it. We're still watching those movies because they still entertain us.
Right.
Birdemic might be a stupid movie, but we're still watching it. So it's all completely subjective. And so, don't let it bother you. And even in the interview in the book, where I forget exactly what David Lynch says about it, but they were talking about how it was. He says, critically, it worked out unbelievably well. Financially, it didn't work out because it didn't cross over to the bigger population. Why? It beats me. Because that's the thing. It's a beautiful movie. It's a fascinating movie, but it is not linear.
No.
So,
and it may not appeal to everybody.
And it might not appeal to everybody, but that doesn't mean the creative process is not still valid.
Exactly. So I just love that quote. That's why I wanted
Me
to
too.
quote it verbatim, because I thought it was worthy.
Yep.
That's all I have for that segment of interview. So we have Angelo and we have Peter Deming and Jack Fisk, and I think that's it.
Yeah, Angelo, I could listen to all freaking day long.
Right.
I love listening to Angelo, and if you can watch this on a TV with a subwoofer while he's playing the theme, I highly recommend doing it, because the theme to this is so beautiful. If there's anything that can hold a candle to the Twin Peaks theme, it's this one.
Yeah, I mean, it's because it's so haunting.
It's so haunting. Yeah, I mean, you know me, I love mysteries of love, and I love I love everything that Angelo's ever done, but this one is really just beautiful. I mean, and Angelo is he's like an adorable grandpa with his stories. I just love hearing him talk. I love hearing.
Yeah, I mean, he tells some great tales in this one. Stuff I haven't, I didn't get out of other Criterions that we've reviewed.
No, and I just love his story about how he was playing piano as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And, he would see all the other kids, and I just love that he's from Brooklyn, and he would look out his window and see other kids playing stickball. Yeah. That is so, 1950s Brooklyn. I adore it.
Right.
And he's like, oh, all these other kids are having fun. I'm stuck inside. So he tells his dad, I want to quit piano lessons. And his dad's thinking, hey, that's $5 I have to spend.
Yeah. But then his brother...
Yeah, go ahead. Then his brother comes home and gives him crap about it.
Right.
Like, what do you mean you quit piano? And then by the time he was 12...
His brother talked his parents back into not letting him quit. Right.
And so, and then by the time Angelo was 12, he realized that when he would play the piano, girls would sit on the bench next to him. Yeah. So, because he played an instrument, he became a chick magnet. So he's like, you know what, this piano thing isn't half bad.
No, it's like, wait, I can get girls with this? Okay. Time to practice.
That works. And then he tells David Lynch about his run-in with the mobster.
Right.
And then David Lynch.
Yeah, that's that the great story, which was essentially the inspiration for Angelo's character in Mulholland Drive, Luigi Castellani.
Mm-hmm. And so, he told David Lynch that story, and then when it was time to film that scene, he's like, remember that story you told me about that guy? Just be that guy.
Yeah, exactly. So. Yeah, because he said, he was invited to a fancy dinner by this guy Joey's wife, but the guy Joey wouldn't shake Angelo's hand.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently there was a singer there, but the guy Joey just kept singing, sitting there eating some soup, didn't say a word.
Yeah, it was very bizarre.
Yeah, and so he tells Lynch this, and then Lynch comes back 9 months later saying wanted Angelo to act in the movie.
I want you to drink some coffee and spit it in your napkin.
Well, this I thought was cool, because Angelo is protesting. He's like, I'm not an actor, but Lynch said, I want you to play Joey in the movie, and I'm not going to tell you, I want you to do something, but I'm not going to tell you what it is until you show up on set.
Mm-hmm.
So he gets there, and then Lynch tells him about rolling the espresso around in his mouth and spitting it out.
Yep.
And apparently he says that was the end of his acting career.
He's never done acting ever since.
Yeah.
It's adorable. But
so that was great.
But yeah, Angelo is always a joy to talk about. He talks about doing music for Ossie Davis's movie Gordon's War.
Yeah. Which apparently was a Paul Winfield blaxploitation film.
It was a Paul Winfield blaxploitation film, and Ossie Davis wanted an all-black cast and crew.
Yeah.
And he's like, Angelo, I love this music, but you're not a brother.
Yeah.
And he said, well, I'm from Sicily, and look how close Sicily is to Africa. So I might not be a brother, but I'm definitely a cousin. And I just thought that was adorable.
That's a good line. Yeah, apparently Barry White was supposed to do the score.
Which would have been, both would have been fabulous. I would love to see I would have loved to have seen a Barry White, Angelo Badalamenti co-production. That would have been gorgeous.
That would have been interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, then he also retold the story about Blue Velvet, which we kind of talked about helping Isabella Rossellini.
Mm-hmm. Peachy Keen. What
Yeah,
does
the
that mean? It means he
peachy.
loved it.
Yeah, exactly. He talked about the Mulholland opening theme being created with Lynch before anything was filmed.
Right. They did the theme before they even were doing the movie or the TV.
Yeah,
That they just were sitting there talking about, this Russian theme, and this
yeah,
is what came out.
and apparently that kind of echoed back to the Laura Harring interview because she talked about that how Lynch would like play the theme for her and
Mm-hmm.
have her listen to it, and then he would sit and watch her to see if he could picture her in the movie.
Right. Right. I also loved her saying when they're going up the side of the hill into the secret entrance in the secret garden, "Walk like a kitty cat."
Yeah, that's a good line.
I thought that was so cute. David Lynch is so like 50s Midwestern. I adore. I love it.
Yeah, he is. He is. And then apparently the scene where Adam meets the cowboy had music played at 1/4 speed.
Oh, interesting.
Kind of like the whole
Yeah.
Muddy Magnolias thing in The Return.
Mm-hmm. American Woman.
The
Yeah.
American Woman remix. Yeah, the Lynch
Yep.
remix. Yeah.
So bizarre.
Yeah, that.
Yeah.
So anyway, so that's basically the Angelo interview in a nutshell.
And it's wonderful.
Yeah.
And then
Deming and Fisk.
Debbie. I knew that Jack Fisk and David Lynch were friends from childhood.
Yeah. Said they met in the ninth grade.
In the ninth grade, but I didn't realize that they had left Montana by the time he was in the ninth grade. They were in Alexandria. It was Alexandria, Virginia. I didn't realize it was that.
Yeah.
I thought that was later that they moved there. So.
Well, apparently not.
It surprised me.
Yeah. Jack talked about being on Eraserhead, playing the Man in the Planet.
Mm-hmm.
Then talked about how like Allied Artist Studios was going out of business, said they could have anything they wanted for $100.
It's like, heck yeah. All right, let's do this.
So they did that, which of course Lynch built into sets.
Mm-hmm.
And back to Mulholland, Peter Deming was brought in to shoot 6 episodes with various directors. So as far as he was concerned, it was going to be the plan was
he
to
thought
do
he was
the
going to be on a series.
Yeah. Jack says that Disney asked if they could shoot Mulholland Drive in Canada, but of course Lynch loves Los Angeles.
And Mulholland Drive has to be Los Angeles,
right? Because it is Los Angeles.
It is Los Angeles. It's that's like asking if you could shoot Sunset Boulevard in North Carolina.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work.
Or it's like, can we shoot Broadway in Iowa? Something like that.
No, you're fired. Go away.
Exactly.
You do not know what you're talking about.
Exactly. Let's see. Adam's house was protected with a matte clear vinyl to protect it from the pink paint. But then
I know, because that was an actual house.
But apparently that wasn't enough. They ended up like wrecking the kitchen or something.
Paint got man.
So they got kind of like yelled at for that, apparently.
And it's funny too, because when I was watching the interview scenes and they had clips of Justin Theroux and Monty Montgomery, and I just started, every time I see Justin Theroux with that pink paint on him, I just laugh because that scene is so classic.
Well, and he's so nonchalant about it. Like he doesn't even care that he's got the paint all over him.
No, he's just like, what else could happen during this day?
Yeah, exactly.
Everybody on his movie's been fired. His credit cards have been frozen. His wife has left him. It's like, what the hell? Like I care about some.
He's checking over the pool guy. Now. Yeah, exactly. He's
seriously.
It's like I have 0 F's to give about my appearance.
0 F's to give. Yeah, seriously.
So a little bit more about Winkies. Apparently, Lynch was saying that he was at that Denny's on Sunset Boulevard at night, and he walked out to the trash bin, and then the hobo came out and scared him.
See, that would have given me night because like as soon as he said that, I was like, oh my god, because that part in that movie scares the crap out of me, even though I know it's coming.
Yeah,
it's really terrifying.
So apparently that was based on a real incident that happened to Lynch, which I thought was interesting.
I think that's very interesting too, because it is really scary, and it would be, and in the movie it happens during the day. It would be even scarier at night.
Right, exactly. So what I have to wonder is like, why was Lynch going out to the trash bin at night?
He probably wasn't. He probably just where his car was, or he was walking that way or something.
Oh, yeah,
because
so
it was in the park. It was in the parking lot.
Okay, so I get it. So he was returning to his car and it just happened to pass by there. I see.
Yeah, he was probably going back to his car and he either had parked
sense.
by it or he parked down the street and he walked past it or something.
I was thinking for some reason that like he had something that he wanted to throw away, so I was like, oh, I'll go over to the trash bin.
He accidentally threw away his retainer when they took his plates.
Exactly. That's funny. Talks about, like Jack was talking about, that he and Lynch used like 10 gallons of paint to paint the exterior of the Club Silencio.
Mm-hmm.
And he also talks about Lynch's love of red drapes for Mr. Rocks.
He's like, if you're not sure what to do on a David Lynch set, just put in some red drapes and he'll be happy.
Yeah, if you're ever stuck, just use red drapes.
Just use red drapes.
Yeah.
I was like, you know what? That's true, because I'm sure.
I think that's.
I'm sure some of the. Yeah, I'm sure so much of that there's red drapes. I'm sure there's red drapes in Eraserhead too. We just don't know it.
Yeah, because it's in black and white. Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, probably that scene where the stage.
The stage,
yeah, that's got to be red drapes, right?
With the girl from the Radiator Girl, yeah, that has to be red drapes. I'm sure.
Has to be. Deming said they only knew about the pilot, not the episodes. But even though he was brought in to shoot episodes, just didn't know what they were, I guess.
He was going to figure it out as they went along, I think.
Yeah, they were the crew was trying to figure out what would happen to Betty, but Lynch wouldn't tell them, of course.
Oh, of course not.
And Jack mentions that Lynch used to be a professional sweeper who swept a scene for the Straight Story himself.
Huh.
Now, where have we seen sweeping
Where have we
before?
seen that before?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like, 10 minutes of sweeping.
10 minutes of sweeping and 10 minutes of green onions.
Exactly. At the Roadhouse. So,
yeah.
So now we kind of like have the understanding of why that sweeping scene
all
was
coming together now.
See, it's all connected. This is why we do these kind of reviews on Ghostwood, because we can get these insights and like, oh, this is why that happened.
The insights and the connective tissue into the mind of David Lynch.
So apparently Lynch has a sweeping fetish. Who knew?
Is he like Emery Battis? Does he have like a vacuum fetish too?
It would make sense why that vacuum cleaner is in there now that you mention it.
Seriously. Or maybe that's David Lynch's way of saying that Emery Battis is like a bad guy because he doesn't like brooms. He wants a vacuum cleaner, and you can't trust a guy who wants a vacuum cleaner.
You just blew my mind.
That's how you know Battis is a
blown.
pervert. That's how you know he's a pervert, is because he likes vacuums.
He should like sweepers He should like sweepers like normal people.
Like a normal person, and only quitters like vacuum cleaners.
They don't talk about Mr. Frosty.
Oh, Mr. Strawberry.
my little snowman. And then, of course, and lastly, Jack, and obviously this is pretty succinct, describes Lynch as a complex individual. No kidding.
No kidding.
Really?
I mean, he is complex. I think he's complex in the sense that he has complex thoughts, but I don't think he's necessarily a complex person.
No.
Like, I don't think it's too hard to figure out what David Lynch wants.
Right.
I think he wants, I think he wants the ability to be creative. I think he wants a good diner breakfast and a cigarette.
Yep.
That's what David Lynch wants.
Give him a grand slam and no hobos popping out from behind the trash bin.
Give him a grand slam, some cigarettes, some red drapes,
coffee,
and some girls with green eyeshadow, and he's
coffee.
Happy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
French girls with
green eyeshadow.
Yeah.
He would be too.
Yeah, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that one out.
No. I think he has complex thoughts, but I don't think he's a complex person. Like, I don't know what David wants. It's like, yeah, you do.
Yeah.
He wants all the good furniture.
Exactly. So, we reviewed the film. So, what's your rating for the Blu-ray?
Oh, my rating for the Blu-ray, and see, it's hard. It's hard for me to know about this stuff because I don't know how much else is out there. I would have liked to have seen more stuff.
Yeah.
If there was any more stuff. So, I'm gonna give
I was
this.
a little let down, but we'll talk about that in a minute.
Yeah, I'm gonna give this 8 out of 10 blue keys
Okay.
because I really do like watching, and I could have sat and watched David Lynch's filming process on the extras for season 3 of Twin Peaks
Right.
for hours. I mean, I know I'd seen those scenes before, and it's a very, working on a movie set is very tedious. It's a lot of hurry up and wait, but I could have watched it for hours because I think it's fascinating. But that doesn't mean there is that much out there. There might not even be that much out there.
Yeah.
So, like they said, a lot of stuff was, lost from Disney, and so I don't know how much they kept of this. I don't know how much
we don't know how much survived. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what's out there. So as much as I want more stuff out there, it's not like there's something I'm thinking of that I would like to see. I would love to see that 88-minute cut.
That's what I was just about to bring up, because I would think that would be the ultimate special feature.
That would be the ultimate special feature, but David Lynch doesn't like it. So
Well,
I don't blame him.
So when we probably will never see that.
We probably won't see it. Yeah, and I don't blame him. That'd be like saying to somebody, hey, that really crappy draft that you did on bad paper, can I look at that? It's not.
The one that you weren't happy with, that you forced.
The one that you don't like.
The one you were forced to turn in early.
Right, the one that you don't think is finished and you don't like and is on crappy video.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at that. So I don't blame him for not putting that on here, but I think it would be. Yeah. I think it would be interesting, especially this far out. When this Blu-ray was done, it was about 15 years from when the movie premiered.
Yeah.
So, this far out, I feel like it's kind of an academic situation at this point. So it'd be interesting. We have the same discussion. MST3K fans have the same discussion about the early KTMA public access episodes.
Yeah.
They're not good. I don't know what you'd want not good. And it's like, well, we want to see them because we want to see you. And
just for the sake of a historical context.
Right. And as a fan, you're wrestling with respecting what the director wants to present to you and wanting to see everything you could possibly see for it.
Yeah. I think it's funny that you bring that up, since I'm wearing my Mystery Science Theater shirt.
Wow, I didn't even know you were wearing that. That's amazing.
With Crow in the...
You want me, baby.
Exactly. I want to decide who lives and who dies.
All I want to do is decide who lives and who dies.
That's my all-time favorite Crow quote.
Yeah, that one is pretty darn good.
I've got Crow on the back of the T-shirt for those out there in podcast land who obviously cannot see the back of the shirt. So
no.
I'm with you on this one. I give it an 8 out of 10 as well. I'm going to give it 8 out of 10 Grand Slam breakfasts.
Yeah, you do.
So give me the Grand Slam.
Grand Slam with coffee, and if there's pie, save me some.
It just writes itself, doesn't it?
See, that's the thing, and it might sound like
there should be like an animated series about David Lynch.
See, we're sort of like, we're not really doing a bad impression of David Lynch. We're doing a bad impression of Gordon Cole as though Gordon Cole were David Lynch.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's exaggerated for comedic effect. Hopefully, it's comedic anyway.
Exaggerated for comedic effect, yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Because I would do nothing but pass out from awe if I ever wound up meeting David Lynch. I have nothing bad to say about him ever.
Exactly. Yeah, it's not out of disrespect. We're not making fun of him.
Mm-hmm.
We're embracing.
If I find out that David Lynch's name is in Epstein's files, I am going to put a bullet in my brain.
Don't even go there.
Did you hear about Stephen Hawking?
I saw that. That was
what
enough.
What the hell?
I mean, because I'm a physics geek, so I was just like, what the actual F with that?
Apparently, infinite reality, infinite universes, infinite realities. There is a reality out there where Stephen Hawking likes hookers, and apparently it's our reality.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I mean, I knew he got divorced because he was hot for somebody else.
Well, he initially got divorced because he was hot for his nurse.
Right.
He married his private nurse, his caregiver nurse, but then she was abusive.
Yeah.
So he divorced her too. So I guess a guy gets lonely.
Well, it just shows you no matter what kind of physical condition a guy is in, Apparently,
If he pays enough, he can have the company of a lady for an evening.
If he's got money, he's definitely thinking about it, no matter what. Yeah.
So disappointed in you, Stephen Hawking.
Yeah. Anyway, let's get on a brighter note. We got some leftover feedback from last time.
Sweet.
So if you've got time, we can do that because I think we should get to it. So first writing in for last episode rather, Matthew Curtis writes in. So he says, "Dear friends, I just want to say a big thank you for the return rewatch. I have absolutely loved it, and at the time of typing, still one to go." Well, hopefully you finished it by now. Hopefully you enjoyed it. "I hope you're both keeping well, and you have been a great escape for me during the lockdown months." So that's great to hear.
Well, thank you, Matthew. Thank you for watching, and thank you for listening.
Definitely. And I love your podcast, and I look forward to what's coming next. Your idea of Mulholland Drive sounds like a winner.
Awesome.
And after your discussion on Audrey, I always thought that Richard being electrocuted happens at the same time as her waking up in the White Room, somehow breaking her limbo. Just a thought. Interesting.
I love that thought, Matthew. That's a good one. I never even put those together.
No, but because of obviously, he's her son biologically. Yeah. So yeah, that would make sense. That would make sense. That I didn't make that connection. So points.
I love that theory.
We're gonna give Matthew points on that. Points.
He gets points.
Yep, points.
Just
mark,
slide it over.
We're just gonna mark one up there for Matthew.
Nice.
Anyway, all the very best to you both. And again, thank you so much for the time and effort you put into the podcast. I really appreciate it. ! All the very best, Matt C. from London.
Well, thank you, Matt C. from London, for listening to us. We really, really appreciate it. So hopefully you stick with us. It
says P.S.
And stay in touch.
P.S. though. Please don't forget the donuts and the Cheetos on the next podcast. The pain in your voice, the pain in your voices is heartbreaking! !
Imagine being without the Cheetos. Think about that pain.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm just now. Like I told Xan earlier about a very stressful week I just had this past week. So without going into details for those of you in podcast land, I just want to say my wife Lori was very considerate and brought home a box of Krispy Kreme donuts.
Hell yeah, she did.
Now half of them were for her, but the other half of the dozen were for yours truly. So
that's still pretty darn good. Yeah, good job, Lori.
So Lori gets wife points for that, as far as I'm concerned.
Heck yeah, she does.
So anyway, got some donuts to cheer me up on a rather stressful day that I had.
Donuts. I got donuts. So that's fabulous.
Donut disturb. I just love that. And lastly, a certain gentleman by the name of Nick Pizzagone. TJ Nick. Yeah, you might have heard from him. You might have heard of that guy. Writing in from about Mulholland Drive. Says, "Dear Charles and Xan."
Don't do your Nick impression.
Long-time listener, first-time writer to the show.
Oh my goodness.
No, I won't do it. I went ahead and watched Mulholland Drive.
I can't wait to hear Nick's impression of you now. That's gonna be hilarious.
You just have to put a bunch of ums and and that stuff. So just draw it out and just ramble a bit, I guess. I like to think I'm pretty self-aware. So he says, I went ahead and watched Mulholland Drive for the first time. And all I can say is I was completely blown away, and I will certainly be exploring more of Lynch's filmography after this movie. As promised to Charles, I will be watching the Twin Peaks pilot.
Fantastic.
Now, he's already watched it by the time, we're reading this. So,
yes. So
I made the suggestion to him as well, we should have you on the podcast to talk about your reaction to the pilot.
That would be interesting to see somebody's reaction to the pilot who watched it, essentially a century later.
Yeah.
in the following century.
Yeah. And Also, Lee Leonard, who's a special guest companion on Next Stop Everywhere,
Good friend of the show, yes.
good friend of the show, has also recently watched the pilot.
Oh, I love that we're
So,
creating Twin
so
Peaks
I
converts.
know. So I said we should like figure out a way to get both of you guys on
I like that
to
idea.
talk about your reaction to the pilot.
I can just imagine the two of us like, so youngsters, tell us what you think about Mommy and Daddy's show.
Exactly. And make sure you have it right. No, just kidding.
Yeah. And don't say anything bad about it because it's awesome and it's perfect and I love it.
Exactly.
And it's never going to be bad ever.
And we've done like 80 of these episodes about it, so you better be nice. Just saying.
So you understand that it's perfect and better than anything ever.
Mind your P's and Q's, Buster. You don't know who you're dealing with. Just picked right up. I love it.
I want my daughter out in front of the school in 10 minutes by herself. I don't want what? Do not let me do all of Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
I know
it's
so easy, isn't it?
I want you out in front of the school with her. I want to have a few words with you, by God.
Yeah. Why doesn't Nick do a podcast where you and I can talk about Ferris Bueller? Where's that podcast, right? It's only like one of my all-time favorite
That podcast
movies.
is called. Oh well, there we go. That could be.
Yeah.
That could be one of the gold standard Patreon episodes.
There we go.
If we were the Academy, John Hughes would have won at least one Oscar for at least Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Or at least an honorary Oscar, right? All right.
Should get an honorary Oscar for awesomeness.
So Nick continues. He says, if I might offer my humble theory when it comes to what is going up story-wise, up until we get Naomi Watts playing Diane Selwig, the entire story we get previously with the characters of Betty and Rita is Betty completely in denial of having placed a hit on Camilla and her trying to make some sense of what she has done and reconciling from it, i.e. going through the famous stages of grief, and her going through a delirium of sorts, creating a whole new narrative for herself and for Camilla. Just
interesting.
Just like Lynch pulls from his own dreams, everything we are subjected to before Diane Selwig wakes up is a hodgepodge of her dreams, fantasies, and maniacal ravings. This is just one man's theory, but regardless of what the deal is, I absolutely love this film and I look forward to more Lynchian adventures. Thank you for providing us with hours of entertainment and making what could be quite the mire to wade through so entertaining. You are both amazing.
Oh, thank you, Nick.
Talk to you both soon.
Takes one to know one.
Talk to you both soon. The Smoking Man, DJ Nick.
Oh, well, Nick might be interested in what we have in store coming up next.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was thinking. So,
yeah.
But, so Nick, always great to hear from you. Thank you both Matthew and Nick for writing in.
Yeah, thanks for listening. Thanks for writing and staying in touch.
Yeah, exactly. Especially Matthew with that great connection there with Audrey and Richard.
Yeah, my brains are on the floor with that one.
Yeah, I don't know why we didn't pick up on that one, but that makes perfect sense to me.
I love it.
Exactly. So, if you want to be like Matthew and Nick, and please do.
You should. They're awesome.
Exactly. Write to us at ghostwoodpodcast@gmail.com.
The Gmail.
Ghostwoodpodcast@gmail.com or at Ghostwoodcast on Twitter or Ghostwood, the Twin Peaks Podcast on the Facebooks. So, Xan, where can they reach you?
I'm on the Facebooks as Xan Sprouse, the Twitter and the Instagram as Udinax19, and talking about Oscar Gold movies on the Gold Standard Oscars podcast with our very own DJ Nick and Rachel Friend.
Exactly. And you were just recently also on Happiness and Darkness.
I was recently on Happiness and Darkness.
Talking Superman 2.
Talking Superman 2 with DJ Nick and Molly Southgate, who was our guest, surprise guest, who it was interesting to talk to somebody so much younger.
Right.
And who had not seen this movie before.
Oh, she went into a cold?
She went into a cold, yeah.
Interesting.
So that was it, because I was telling the two of them that and Nick hadn't seen it for a long time.
Because I'm only like
And
20 minutes into this episode,
yeah.
so I
And what's funny is when I've done 2 episodes of Happiness and Darkness. One of them was Superman 2, and the other one is Flash Gordon.
right.
And every time Nick is like, "Why are you picking these movies?"
Because they're the most awesome movies.
He's always very surprised, because when I did Flash Gordon, he's like, "I'm surprised you picked Flash Gordon." I was like, "Dude, I had the Flash Gordon wedding march at my wedding, okay?" So
What does he expect you to pick? I'm kind of curious.
I know, right? But yeah, so Superman 2, the Superman movies for me in the 80s were like what the Wizard of Oz was to everybody.
Yeah.
Like, oh, Superman's going to be on TV. You know, because my parents didn't have a VCR for half of the 80s, so it was a big deal for me and I'd seen it, and then when we finally did get a VCR, I was able to tape it off of television and watch it a bazillion times. So to talk to somebody who had never seen it before and somebody who had grown up with comics and, like, I don't want to say better Superman, but different Superman. There was, Tom Welling, Brandon Routh, and
different
Henry
generation,
Cavill,
different generation.
Yeah. And to see what they think about this movie, which has its problems, but boy, is it charming. So.
Yeah. I mean, we've talked about this. Obviously, I'm a huge Superman fan as well. Superman, the 1978 film is one of
Best
my all-time
comic book movie ever made.
Pretty much, yeah. It's my all-time favorite comic book movie, and one of my all-time favorite movies. Period. And with Superman 2, I've got a personal story that at one point I will share with you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I have a very personal connection to that movie. So
okay.
So I'll just leave it there. And a lot of affinity for it. So as a result.
No, I personally think, and I've said this before, I think the Superman soundtrack, the score to Superman, the original Superman, is the best thing John Williams.
John Williams, yeah.
Yeah. It's his masterpiece.
Pretty much. I mean, it's such a beautiful score, because I bought like the 3 CD version not too long ago.
Oh, yeah, I still need to get that.
And it's magical. I absolutely adore it. I mean, because I still have my original vinyl of the original.
Nice.
And, obviously I don't listen to it because, hey, CDs are around, but I still have it in really nice condition, I might add.
Nice.
And,
good job.
But I mean, it was just this beautiful, this double disc with the gatefold fold out album.
Gatefold, yeah.
And it was just one of my all-time favorite soundtracks that has just lingered in my head.
Yeah.
So that's why I had to spring for this 3 CD version, because it was just so good.
I still have to get that. That is on my list of things I need to own in my life.
Yeah, it's just one of my favorite scores ever of any film.
Ever.
Yeah.
Do you listen to the soundtrack show, Charles?
I do not.
You need to listen to the soundtrack show, and you need to listen to
because I am
Superman
a soundtrack
episode.
geek. Yeah.
He finally did Superman this past April, and it is amazing. Listen to that one, and listen to the one about Danny Elfman's Batman.
Ooh, that sounds good.
You will be hooked on this show, and don't try to listen to it when you are doing anything else or trying to go to sleep, because you will stay awake and pay really close. It's like listening to a music theory lecture. It's fabulous.
Interesting.
Yeah, I highly recommend it. I keep hoping he's going to do something Angelo Badalamenti related.
Thanks for the recommendation there.
Yeah, and everybody else out there, go listen to the soundtrack show. You will absolutely love it.
All right. Good to know. Thanks, Ann.
Mm-hmm.
As for me, of course, at Charles Skaggs on Twitter, at Charles Skaggs on Instagram, Facebook, of course, Charles Skaggs in Hilliard, Ohio, and my blog of Geeky Things.
Damn good coffee and hot.
Damn good coffee and hot. We're talking about all the stuff we talk about here on Ghostwood, your Twin Peaks, David Lynch stuff, comic book sci-fi news of my other podcasts for Southgate Media, including Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast, where DJ Nick is on occasionally, Xan is on occasionally.
You're having like a anniversary, aren't you?
Yeah, because our 200th episode's coming up.
200 episodes. Look at you guys.
Yep. So pretty cool. And we just had our 6th anniversary. So
that's impressive.
We're turning the big 06. And
that's one thing we did for Chris's birthday. We went to Best Buy and we got those full collection box sets of each of the Doctors,
Nice.
of the newer Doctors.
Yeah.
Because we've been waiting for their prices to go down, and we got David Tennant and Christopher Eccleston was like $20.
Excellent.
So I was like, okay, we're gonna finally buy a Doctor Who.
Good. So look forward to hearing from your thoughts about that.
Well, you know me, I love Christopher Eccleston. I was sad to see him go.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were. So we got our big 200th episode coming up here in the near future, so stay tuned for that. And the Phantom Zone podcast they do with Jesse Jackson, where we talk. Right now, we're finishing up Stargirl. That's on DC Universe and the CW. Not sure what we're going to talk about next, but
I got to tell you, Charles, when I was talking about Superman 2, I had to very consciously say Phantom Zone.
Yes.
Because I wanted to just go into Phantom Zone.
You hear Phantom Zone from me to wake you up.
That's the wrong thing. You got to put the T in there. It's a PH and a T, not an F and a D.
Exactly. So Phantom Zone. Yeah.
It was I had to very consciously make sure I enunciated that.
I understand totally. Trust me. I get tripped up on it all the time, as you can probably imagine. And then, of course, Titan Talk the Titans podcast that I'm currently doing with DJ Nick, where we're talking Doom Patrol Season 2, which has been fantastic.
Nice.
Having a ball with that. Just watched the Season 2 finale tonight. We'll get to that in about 3 weeks because we're kind of 3 weeks behind because they did the first 3 episodes. They released them all on the same day. So we're still constantly playing catch up with that. But it kind of helps drag out our discussions a little longer, which is good. And we can really deep dive into it. It's a lot of fun. Nick's been great. And I hope everybody checks it out. So
I think you should.
Yep. So the question now is, next time on Ghostwood, what do we talk about?
Well, Charles, there's room for more than one.
Yes.
There's room on our podcast. Okay, did we Skype out there for a second?
Just a little bit.
All right, what I was going to say, Charles, is that there's room on our podcast.
Seems glitchy.
Yes.
There's room on our podcast for more than one beautiful TV show on the Federal Bureau of Investigation.
Oh, is there?
Yes.
Do you have anybody else in mind in addition to a certain Dale Bartholomew Cooper, perhaps?
Well, I'm thinking about possibly talking about an LL FBI show that also had David Duchovny and Don Davis and Michael J. Anderson and Michael Horse and Russ Tamblyn.
Why, that wouldn't be the X-Files you're talking about, would it?
That would be the X-Files, yeah. So I think we should start talking about Twin Peaks X-Files
connections. Yeah.
Connections.
Yeah,
yes.
So that's something we kind of talked about a little bit right before recording this episode. And, because there's been numerous, I won't say numerous, but various Twin Peaks actors who appeared on the show, on the X-Files, in addition to Twin Peaks. Right. So some of them rather notable, playing some rather notable characters. So with that in mind, Xan and I decided, well, hey, we should talk about this stuff, especially since, hey, David Duchovny is like one of the lead characters on the show.
Right. David Duchovny is our FBI connection between Twin Peaks and X-Files.
And as a lot of Twin Peaks fans, old enough like the both of us from back in the day, after Twin Peaks was canceled, the X-Files was kind of like our refuge.
It filled a void. We were adrift for a couple of years, but then the X-Files filled a void for us.
A lot of us filled that void with to that Pacific Northwest void with the X-Files and Northern Exposure.
Northern Exposure, yeah.
Another particular favorite of mine. But the X-Files, in for a lot of fans, especially, kind of captured that mystery and the creepiness. So it was a natural fit for Twin Peaks fans becoming X-Files with a PHILES.
Oh, yeah, that's right. They called us that, didn't they?
Exactly. That was the nickname back in the day, the X-Files.
The X-File.
X-Files, yes.
X-Files.
X-Files. So with that in mind, yeah, we're going to talk some X-Files, if that's okay with everybody. I'm guessing it's going to be okay with a certain DJ Nick,
I think DJ Nick might enjoy that.
Yeah, he was kind of insisting, like, you guys should do a podcast, an X-Files podcast. And it's like, we got enough going on, man, right now.
We do enough podcasts.
Exactly.
Oh, my God.
Exactly. Like, I got 4 right now, so what do you want from me?
I've been talking for almost 6 hours straight on podcasts tonight.
Exactly. So we should probably wrap this up, right?
Let's wrap it up. Yeah.
All right. So everybody,
I'm about to pass out.
So yeah, episode 81, we're going to talk the X-Files pilot.
Yeah, we are.
Because we need to talk about the pilot first because, hey, it's David Duchovny. So what better place to start with Duchovny than with Duchovny himself? So we'll talk about that next time. Xan, thank you very much for hanging in there. I know you're kind of playing on the disabled list tonight. So thank you for that.
I'm having some trouble. Yes.
Yeah. So with that in mind, everybody, thank you so much for listening. Thanks for writing in. Hope to hear from you more. And then we'll see you next time in 2 weeks for episode 81, the X-Files pilot, right here on Ghostwood, the Twin Peaks podcast. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.